Clover has excellent world building. Now, the world of Black Clover is one filled with an abundance of magic, an abundance of creatures, and an abundance of pretty much every mystical thing that you can possibly imagine. The thing about Black Clover is it's constantly expanding upon an already well-established world. Some of the things that have been established so far in this world have been the 4 kingdoms that we have been introduced to since pretty much the beginning of the series. These kingdoms include the Clover Kingdom, the Spade Kingdom, the Diamond Kingdom, and the Heart Kingdom. Each of these kingdoms has a very distinct culture and a very distinct climate and relationship to other kingdoms. Now, the Diamond Kingdom, the Spade Kingdom, the Clover Kingdom, and the Heart Kingdom are actually only just a few nations that are established in this series. There's also a nation that we don't even know much about, but we know that it exists, and we can only use our imagination to kind of lead us in the right direction of what this nation could possibly be like. Now, this is where Yami Sukahiro comes from, as he is a foreigner to the Clover Kingdom, and we can see just from the fact that Yami is from a different nation, he is very different than a lot of the natural born Clover Kingdom citizens. And I would assume that nation has a very distinct culture of its own also. Now, moving past talking about the nations, the actual Black Clover universe, these include things like the magic, the creatures, the spirits, the mythical beasts. All of these things come together and form this ever-expanding world, and Yuki Tabata has done an amazing job in creating this world. Every time I read Black Clover or watch an episode, I'm just like, wow, especially when you see the vast landscapes of the Heart Kingdom and how it's rich in mana and natural beauty. You can definitely see how good it looks. And that nation is currently home to the water spirit Undyne. Now, this comes with a lot of history, as Undyne was passed on, and history plays a big part in world building also, because you don't want to start at the beginning of a world, because no one has ever done that. No one has ever started at the beginning of a world, so we need to know the history. And when it comes to Black Clover, we know a lot of history. We know events that took place 500 years ago, and that's only just scratching the surface, because there's still a lot we don't know. And the reason I bring up world building is because this is how the story expands. I've heard a lot of people say that Yuki Tabata is playing the long game, and I definitely agree, because when it comes to Black Clover, to me at least, it feels like it's only just beginning. Like, this is the prologue to something bigger. That's literally how big this world is. Now, Black Clover does have the advantage of being over 100 episodes long and over 200 chapters long, so it does have that advantage when it comes to building its world. A lot of anime and manga don't have that. You know, they have to finish up with the whole world building in like 24 episodes. I know a lot of people don't really like filler episodes, but I'll talk about them briefly. Even when it comes to the filler episodes, they're able to be created very well, because the world is so huge that they can pretty much do whatever they want inside of this world, and it will make sense because of the previously laid down groundwork. For example, it was previously laid down that this world has a bunch of dungeons. So in one of the filler episodes, they go to a dungeon. So it makes complete logical sense. Now, while we're on the topic of dungeons, those are actually one of my favorite things about the world, because they have these magic knights, and they pretty much go into these dungeons with no clue as to what is going to be there. Now, you never know what you could find, and in these dungeons you can find things like treasure, you can find new spells, you can find rare items. It's just a plethora of things that you can possibly find in these dungeons, as well as a plethora of creatures that you can battle against. Now, these aren't just normal creatures for the most part. Sometimes there are just normal creatures, but sometimes they have these creatures who are exponentially more powerful than your average run-of-the-mill magic beast that's out in the world somewhere. And when it comes to the magical beast, there's big magic beasts who are fairly harmless, and there's incredibly powerful magical beasts that are very devastating to anybody who would come into their path without the proper power to defeat them. The Magic Knights have an established hierarchy of power, if you want to say it like that, and Sometimes a magical beast might be so powerful that only the top level magic knights are able to defeat it. So imagine a normal citizen running into this magical beast. Now, when it comes to the normal citizens, there's also variety in those as well. There are normal citizens who are exponentially better than their counterparts at things like mana control and magical abilities, as well as magical attribute. But then again, on the opposite side of the spectrum, when it comes to Black Clover, I know you guys have probably seen the intro of a lot of the episodes, and it pretty much states that some people are born with barely any magic, while there are people all the way at the top who are born with, you know, very powerful magic. So that is setting up the groundworks for this world. Now, I do believe Asta might be able to change this in the future, but if not, this is how it currently is. So this is how I'm going to currently present the information. One of the most popular areas to talk about when it comes to the Black Clover world is the Sea Temple. Now, the Sea Temple, in my opinion, is absolutely beautiful, and it has its own culture just like the nations, and it's very unique. This is in the strong magic region under a bunch of water, so that's why they call it the Sea Temple. And they have their own history, their own way of life, their own traditions, and their own rules and things that they do on a day-to-day basis. This is a region where not a lot of people can even travel to. And the reason I'm bringing up this region in particular is because it does a fantastic job of highlighting just how much we know about the world of Black Clover and just how much we don't know about the world of Black Clover, because it is stated that this is only one of the secluded areas of the Black Clover universe, because most people are not going to be able to go to this area of the map, if you want to call it that. But that's only one area. There's also other areas that we have not seen, but we know they're there. So that's where the room for expanding this comes in, where we can sometime in the future go to these worlds. And in the world building of Black Clover doesn't just stop there. There are actually different dimensions. For example, there is the underworld, and most of you may know, but this is where the devils reside. Now, the devils pretty much have to reside within the underworld because that's the natural order of the world of Black Clover. But that does not mean that the underworld cannot be explored. Now, when it comes to the underworld, at this point in time, we don't actually have that much information regarding this area, but I'm sure in the future we're gonna get a lot more information, and this is just one of the examples that I'm highlighting because it's another area that's introduced with its own culture and its own history. For example, just throwing something out there for those of you who may not know, in the underworld, the culture is the devils on the top pretty much trample all over the devils on the bottom, and that's just how it is in the underworld. That's just how it is, and that actually creates mystery. So will the underworld ever change? Will someone go down there and change the underworld? And this series has such room for expanding that it is crazy. Every aspect of the world absolutely sucks you into the world as it's supposed to do. I'm pretty sure most of the hardcore Black Clover fans can name a couple of villages in the Black Clover world, and maybe even name a couple of places they would want to live when it comes to Black Clover. There's the royal capital. I'm pretty sure most of you would want to live there, but hey, maybe you want to live in the Forsaken Realm. That's another area of the world that I didn't even talk about. Now, I can go on talking about the world of Black Clover for hours and hours, but I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it off there. But if you guys do want me to talk about the world building of Black Clover even more in depth, or go over some of the narrative perspectives of Black Clover, I will be more than happy to do so. You can expect Black Clover videos all of the time from me. But with that being said, hopefully you guys did enjoy the video, and if you did, please leave me a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe. As always, it's been your boy NeoXO, and I'm out.